something is happening in Hollywood that no one saw coming. What started as a messy legal battle between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni has now exploded into a high-stakes showdown between celebrity power and online speech. And at the center of the storm subpoenas, content creators. And one very public question: are Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds weaponizing the legal system to silence criticism? For years, Lively and Reynolds have been one of Hollywood's most beloved couples, funny, relatable, glamorous, and always in control of the narrative. But now that carefully curated image is being torn apart by a growing backlash, they issue a series of subpoenas sent to popular creators who dared to comment on Blake's ongoing feud with Baldoni, subpoenas that many are calling an abuse of power. Perez Hilton, Candace Owens, and Andy Signore all served, all speaking out, and then came the lawyers. In a stunning twist, multiple legal experts, some former prosecutors, others civil rights attorneys, are sounding the alarm. One even said plainly, this isn't retaliation, then what is it? Because from a legal ethics standpoint, it looks like textbook intimidation. That quote sent shockwaves across the internet. Suddenly, this wasn't just a celebrity feud. This became a legal case study about free speech power dynamics and whether public figures are crossing the line by dragging creators into their personal legal wars. In the age of social media, creators are the new watchdogs, and if they can be silenced through legal threats, what does that mean for commentary journalism and independent voices? This story is no longer about who said what in a Hollywood feud. It's about something much bigger. It's about the future of public discourse. It's about the ability to speak truth to power, or even speculate about the truth without fear of being dragged into court. In the following script, we're going to break down every angle, what the subpoenas really say, why lawyers are speaking out, how Ryan Reynolds might be more involved than he appears, what content creators are doing to fight back, and why judges might ultimately reject Lively's legal tactics altogether. Because when celebrity power meets unchecked litigation, the public notices, and the law responds. This is not a conspiracy theory, this is real, this is documented, and it's unfolding in real time. So get ready to go deep, not into drama for clicks, but into a legal and cultural earthquake that may reshape the relationship between Hollywood and the internet forever. Because the moment a celebrity tries to silence speech and a lawyer says this isn't retaliation, that's when you know the real story is just getting started. It started with a whisper, a few murmurs online about Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds allegedly targeting content creators. At first it seemed like just another internet rumor, but then legal documents surfaced. Subpoenas were confirmed. Prominent creators, from legal commentators to pop culture analysts, started sharing screenshots and legal threats they claimed had been sent by Lively's team. What began as whispers turned into a full-blown media storm, and in the center of it, a growing accusation: retaliation. The idea that Lively and Reynolds were retaliating against creators who dared to talk about their ongoing legal drama with Justin Baldoni. That was what fueled a large portion of public outrage. But here's where things get even more complicated. One prominent legal expert came forward with a scorching take that completely shifted the conversation. This isn't retaliation, it's strategic intimidation hidden under a legal cloak. That quote, which quickly went viral, came from a former federal prosecutor turned media legal analyst. And their warning wasn't subtle. According to this expert, if what's being alleged is true, if subpoenas are being used to punish, not to gather real evidence, then it's not just ethically troubling. It could backfire badly on Lively and Reynolds. So what exactly are they trying to do? Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are currently embroiled in a complicated, high-stakes legal battle involving actor-director Justin Baldoni. The case, rooted in a defamation claim and broader accusations of behind-the-scenes sabotage in Hollywood, has captured public attention because of its explosive mix of celebrity power dynamics and media manipulation. As part of the pre-trial discovery process, Lively's legal team reportedly issued subpoenas to multiple content creators. That in itself isn't illegal, but the way it was done and who was targeted has many legal minds scratching their heads. Perez Hilton, Candace Owens, Andy Signore, all three publicly confirmed they were served subpoenas. Each of them had, in one way or another, commented critically about Blake Lively's legal strategy or her relationship with Baldoni. And when their names started trending alongside words like targeted and intimidation, the reaction was swift. One lawyer broke it down this way: subpoenas are not supposed to be used as weapons. They're tools for gathering relevant information. When you issue them to critics with no direct connection to your legal dispute, you start treading dangerously close to what's called abusive litigation tactics. Courts don't take kindly to that. More interestingly, it's not just random legal analysts making noise. A few of the creators being subpoenaed are already lawyered up and exploring their own options. Some are even talking about potential anti-slap motions lawsuits designed to protect free speech from being silenced by litigation. Online, the backlash has grown in waves. At first, fans were simply confused. Why would a couple known for their charisma and charm, two of the most beloved public figures in Hollywood, take such a heavy-handed approach to online criticism? But slowly the narrative started shifting. Memes mocking the subpoenas began trending. Legal YouTubers broke down the tactics in excruciating detail. Some even ran simulations of what a judge might say in court. And the consensus, if this was a tactic to chill speech, it's backfiring badly. The biggest PR disaster, though, came not from the content creators but from Lively's own silence. The longer she refused to comment, the more it looked like she had something to hide, and in the court of public opinion, silence speaks volumes. Behind closed doors, legal insiders say there's tension even among Lively's own team. Some are worried that her aggressive tactics, especially those involving influencers, could end up hurting her case rather than helping it. A misstep here could mean sanctions, bad press, or worse, exposure of internal communications that were never meant to be public. And let's be honest, in the age of social media, legal battles aren't fought only in courtrooms. They're fought on TikTok, YouTube, Reddit, and Twitter. Every move is dissected, every misstep amplified. Which is why, as this story keeps evolving, more and more people are asking the same question. Did Blake Lively just make the biggest legal mistake of her career? Because if she did, and if her strategy was built on shaky legal ground, then no amount of a list charm or PR spin will be able to undo the damage. At first, many assumed Reynolds had no involvement. After all, Blake was the one directly involved in the defamation dispute with Justin Baldoni. But as pressure mounted, fans and legal observers started asking, why were both of their names attached to certain subpoenas? Why were Reynolds' lawyers co-signing off on requests targeting critics? And then the leaks began. According to one media outlet, emails surfaced allegedly showing correspondence between Reynolds' legal team and certain third-party investigators involved in the collection of social media commentary about the case. The goal to compile a list of individuals potentially influencing public perception of Lively's dispute, including YouTubers, podcasters, and legal analysts. That phrase, influencing public perception, became a lightning rod. Critics immediately accused Reynolds of helping fuel a broader campaign of intimidation. Legal commentators, especially those from the digital space, pointed out how problematic it is when celebrities begin identifying and cataloging critical voices for legal targeting. One entertainment attorney speaking anonymously warned, "That's a very slippery slope. If it looks like you're assembling a list of enemies just because they're talking about your case, that can be interpreted as retaliatory intent. The court might see that as an abuse of discovery, especially if those people don't have factual evidence relevant to your claims." But what made things even worse was Reynolds' silence. For a man known for his quick-wit, public charm, and mastery of online banter, especially on Twitter, the sudden radio silence felt jarring. His last public appearance had nothing to do with the controversy. He was seen promoting one of his film projects, smiling on a red carpet, carefully ignoring shouted questions from reporters about the subpoenas. That's when people started asking, is Ryan Reynolds trying to separate himself publicly from this mess while remaining involved behind the scenes? Whether or not that's true, it hasn't stopped legal experts from raising red flags. One former judge, now a media legal consultant, explained the ethical concern in plain terms. When a wealthy public figure uses the legal system to try to extract information from a critic, especially if that critic is a commentator or influencer, with no material connection to the actual case, that's when it becomes a First Amendment issue. Free speech isn't just about saying what you want, it's about being able to speak without fear of legal retaliation from powerful figures. And if the subpoenas issued under both Lively and Reynolds' names are perceived as attempts to intimidate critics, they could find themselves facing legal scrutiny from an entirely different angle. There's also a reputational risk, and that risk is growing. For years, Blake and Ryan were considered America's sweethearts. Witty, stylish, private, but relatable, they built a brand that was both aspirational and approachable. But in a post-#MeToo and post-Amber Heard world, audiences are far less forgiving. Power dynamics, legal strategies, and public accountability matter more than ever, and fans are paying attention. On Reddit, fan pages dedicated to Blake and Ryan have begun to splinter. Some users are defending them, arguing that subpoenas are a normal part of litigation, but others are openly criticizing the couple for what they see as overreach. Threads titled, "Is Ryan Reynolds actually behind this, and I can't support Blake after this?" have racked up thousands of comments and upvotes. Meanwhile, on YouTube and TikTok, lawyers and analysts are breaking down the exact language of the subpoenas line by line. Several have noted what they see as overly broad language requesting private communications, draft content, and even monetization data from creators. That level of intrusion is usually reserved for key witnesses or participants in a case, not online commentators, which brings us to the next major problem: legal ethics. Law schools across the country are starting to pick up this case as a cautionary tale. In one viral clip, a Georgetown law professor explained the legal system gives lawyers a lot of power, but with that power comes responsibility. If you're using legal tools to harass or intimidate speech, especially critical speech, you could be violating professional conduct rules, and those violations could lead to sanctions, or worse, bar complaints. What's more, Lively and Reynolds aren't just dealing with one lawsuit. The broader legal battle with Justin Baldoni is complex and still ongoing. If the court believes they're engaging in abusive litigation conduct, it could taint their credibility in that case as well. Some experts are even warning that their legal team's actions may invite future counter-litigation, especially if any content creators can show that the subpoenas were meant to punish or chill lawful commentary. If that happens, Blake and Ryan could find themselves not just as plaintiffs or witnesses, but as defendants. Perhaps the most compelling part of all this isn't just the legal maneuvering. It's the broader cultural shift we're witnessing. Gone are the days when celebrities could operate above the rules. Today, the internet acts as both judge and jury. Every legal move is scrutinized. Every PR misstep is amplified. And when powerful people appear to weaponize the courts to silence criticism, it rarely ends well. Just ask Amber Heard. And now, as this story continues to develop, the comparisons are growing louder. The public sees the similarities: a famous woman facing backlash using the legal system to try to shift the narrative, and ending up in deeper trouble. The internet doesn't forget, and neither do content creators, especially when they feel they're being silenced. So what happens next? Sources close to the case say more subpoenas may be on the way. Some content creators are preparing to file motions to quash. A few are working on amicus briefs to argue for broader First Amendment protections in cases involving celebrity litigation. Meanwhile, Lively and Reynolds' teams remain tight-lipped. But behind the scenes, legal insiders say there's panic. Not just about the optics, but about the possibility that this strategy could backfire in court. Because if a judge decides these subpoenas were issued in bad faith, it's not just a PR disaster. It could become a full-blown legal one. The subpoenas may have been delivered quietly, but the reaction they provoked has been anything but. Within hours of confirming their receipts, several high-profile content creators turned to the platforms that built their careers and fired back with a fury not in hate, but in legal clarity and defiant tone. And what followed was a wave of organized strategic resistance, the likes of which Hollywood rarely expects. Perez Hilton was the first to go public. In a bold video titled "I Got Subpoenaed by Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, Here's the Truth," the celebrity gossip icon didn't hold back. He spoke calmly but directly, calling the subpoena a transparent attempt to scare people into silence. He made it clear that he would not be deleting any content nor backing down from future commentary. "This isn't just about me," he told viewers, "it's about setting a precedent. If they can do this to me, who's next?" That single video gathered millions of views within 48 hours. Not long after, conservative commentator Candace Owens issued a fiery statement of her own. She confirmed she too had been subpoenaed, and she wasn't having it. "This is not justice," she said. "This is privilege playing dress up in a courtroom. It's an effort to punish those who speak freely about public matters. I will not be intimidated. I will be fighting this legally and publicly." Then came Andy Signore, founder of Popcorn Planet. His response, layered with emotion and legal insight, struck a chord with creators of all political stripes. "I've done nothing wrong," he stated plainly. "I covered a public case, offered commentary, and now I'm being asked to hand over emails, drafts, and personal information for what? Because I had an opinion Blake Lively didn't like." The internet listened and responded. Almost overnight, hashtags like #stand with creators, #subpoena abuse, and #free speech matters began trending across platforms. Even creators not directly involved in the legal mess began expressing solidarity, posting videos and stories under titles like "Am I next?" and "This is bigger than Blake Lively." What made the movement even stronger was the fact that lawyers, real practicing lawyers, began joining the conversation. Legal analysts like Emily D. Baker, Natalie Lawyer Chick, and even the Lawyer You Know began breaking down the subpoenas line by line, offering critical insight into how unusual, aggressive, and potentially flawed the language truly was. One TikTok video from a former appellate attorney, now a legal educator, went viral after she said, "This is what we call chilling speech. You're telling creators if you talk about this, we'll drag you into court. It's coercive. It's strategic, and frankly, it could be considered an abuse of the discovery process. In the comments, thousands of replies, some from creators, others from everyday viewers, all echoing the same concern: what precedent does this set? That's where the real danger lies. If celebrities backed by vast legal teams and endless resources can silence online commentary simply by triggering subpoenas, what does that mean for journalism, for public accountability, for anyone with a voice? But it wasn't just talk. Behind the scenes, legal action was already in motion. Attorneys representing multiple creators began preparing motions to quash the subpoenas, essentially legal challenges asking the court to throw them out. Others considered counterclaims citing First Amendment protections and anti-SLAPP laws, which are designed to prevent exactly this kind of legal intimidation. One First Amendment lawyer put it bluntly: if I were representing any of these creators, I'd be arguing that this is not about obtaining factual evidence, it's about punishing public speech. That's a violation of constitutional protections. And while the courts have yet to officially weigh in, public support for the creators only grew stronger. Even those who didn't necessarily agree with their opinions rallied behind their right to express them without fear. Social media became flooded with support not just for Owens, Hilton, and Signore, but for all independent commentators, critics, and journalists who walked the tightrope between public discourse and legal pressure. For many viewers, this wasn't about being pro-Blake or anti-Blake. It was about a far more fundamental issue: who controls the narrative, the people or the powerful? Some creators even began working together to pool resources. Whispers of a coordinated legal defense fund began to circulate. Others reached out to public interest organizations like the ACLU Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press and Digital Media Law Project for guidance. There's also talk, still unconfirmed, that a small coalition of creators may file a joint petition to the court, not just to quash their individual subpoenas, but to seek clarity on the boundaries of permissible discovery when it comes to social commentary. The irony in all this: the legal strategy that may have been intended to quiet dissent has instead amplified it louder than ever. Now, instead of a handful of creators talking about the Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni case, the entire creator economy is watching. Legal channels, pop culture pages, reaction commentators, everyone's tuned in. Even casual fans, people who barely followed the legal battle before, are now deeply invested. Not because they care about the details of the defamation case, but because they see the bigger issue. This is about power, and Woe gets to wield it without accountability. For Blake and Ryan, that poses a huge risk, both legally and reputationally. Because now, no matter what happens in the courtroom, a massive part of the public already believes they've overstepped. And once that perception sets in, it's incredibly hard to reverse. And let's not forget, the court of public opinion isn't bound by rules of evidence, it's ruled by emotion, optics, and trust. And right now, trust in Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds is wearing thin. The very creators they tried to silence are now leading the most impactful public conversation about them in years. And they're doing it with facts, confidence, and the full weight of public support. As we reach the end of this deep dive into one of the most controversial legal episodes in Hollywood right now, one thing is clear. This isn't just a story about subpoenas. It's a reflection of a much larger cultural reckoning with how power is used, how influence is protected, and how the legal system can be manipulated or misused by those who sit at the very top of the entertainment industry. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have long been considered untouchable, polished, charming, intelligent, and admired. But this current backlash isn't coming from their enemies, it's coming from everyday people, creators, and even lawyers who are stepping up and saying this doesn't feel right. Because at the core of this controversy is a disturbing possibility that legal tools meant to protect justice are being used instead to suppress dissent. That subpoenas, which should be used to gather relevant evidence, are being sent to content creators, not because they hold critical information, but because they voiced an opinion that didn't align with the narrative. If that's true, and if courts agree, this could become one of the most significant free speech battles in the influencer era. The creators who have spoken out, Perez Hilton, Candace Owens, Andy Signore, and others, are not just defending their content. They're defending the right to analyze, to speculate, and to criticize powerful people without fear of retaliation. They're also bringing awareness to how fragile that right can be when those with deep pockets and legal firepower decide to push back. Even more telling is the response from legal professionals, when actual lawyers with no stake in the fight begin saying that these subpoenas could be unethical, retaliatory, or even abusive. That's a red flag. Not just for Blake and Ryan, but for anyone watching closely, because if celebrities can subpoena you just for talking about their lawsuits, where does it end? Does every reaction video become potential evidence? Will journalists be next? Will influencers begin censoring themselves to avoid trouble? That's not how the legal system is supposed to work. And it's certainly not how democracy thrives. What comes next remains to be seen. The courts will have to determine whether these subpoenas are valid. Motions to quash will be heard. Public opinion will continue to evolve. But one thing is certain: Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds may have just sparked a conversation they never intended to start. And no matter how this plays out legally, their public image, once glowing and untouchable, is now under real and possibly permanent scrutiny. Because when power is challenged and truth is tested, the people pay attention. And this time it's not going away. This wasn't just about defamation. This became a defining moment in the battle between celebrity influence and public accountability, and the world is watching.